feel like it's one of those books that just kind of changes your perspective on things. No, guys, I actually choose peace. I think you guys know what this means. We're about to go through all of the books that I read in October. Really quickly before we start this video, let's go through some stats. I read a total of 6 books this month. I normally read around 5 or 6 books a month anyway, so nothing too crazy. I'm still okay with that, alright? Broken out of our book slump and still came out on top, okay? Let's go, team. 3 of those books were romance books, 2 of them were fantasy, and then the last one is a literary fiction book. So we have kind of a few genres going on here. I feel like normally my genres vary on the season that we're in. Like, for example, if it's summertime, I'm going to be reading like rom-coms, happier books. Whereas if it's like fall time, I'll be reading things like literary fiction or fantasy. But I feel like this month I actually had a good bit of different genres going on here. So I'm so excited for this reading wrap up because I feel like it's not just going to be me repeating the same thing over and over and over again. We had a little bit of difference this month, okay? I think we should start off on a high note, so I'm going to be talking about A Man Called Ove first. I feel like everybody read this book this month. I saw like at least 4 out of the like 10 book YouTubers that I watch read A Man Called Ove. Obviously, I'm gonna want to read the same book that I just watched someone else read. Like, I have extreme FOMO for situations that don't need FOMO, so I read A Man Called Ove. This book, genuinely, I feel like it's one of those books that just kind of changes your perspective on things. I feel like this book is very comparable to books like The Story Life of A.J. Fickery or The Upside. Those 2 books I compare A Man Called Ove to the most just because of like the emotional impact of the story. It's dealing with this character who is very angry at the world and kind of just like wants his life to end. In this book specifically, you're focusing on Ove. He is a very, very grumpy old man who just genuinely thinks that like he's always right. He's so upset about like little things that you don't really need to be getting upset about, and he's also dealing with the grief. So in the beginning, you're kind of like, why is this man kind of rude? And then you keep following the story and you realize like, oh my gosh, he's dealing with so much stuff. He's still dealing with the grief of losing his wife, like the one person in the world who he felt like understood him and actually cared for him and actually loved him. And oh my god, it's actually gonna make me cry. There were so many different quotes that I took pictures of this book. I feel like while the ending wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be, it ended so beautifully. And also I feel like it should be mentioned because I don't think a lot of people mention this about this book. There are heavy topics in this book. Like, it's a lot. This book is really heavy, and I feel like a lot of people don't talk about exactly how heavy this book is. Even though I feel like there should be like trigger warnings for this topics, I feel like the author just had a perfect way of incorporating it into the story, making it a big deal and making you really think about it, but then like reeling it back a little bit and like making a little joke or like bringing humor back and like happiness back into like these harder, difficult topics. I think that was so special. I love Frederick Bachman's writing, and I literally want to read everything that he writes now. Let me see if I have any quotes from this book that I want to share before we move on, because this was a very heavy book for me. I started crying. Okay? I feel like I'd be doing you guys a disservice if I shared all of the quotes that I have pictures of from this book, because it's just one of those books that I just want you to go into it like more on the blinder side, because I feel like that way it'll make you feel a lot more for the characters and for the whole storyline in general. So I'm not going to share all of the quotes that I have. I'm only going to share one, okay? Because this one stood out to me the most out of all the quotes in this book. It says he discovered that he liked houses, maybe mostly because they were understandable. They could be calculated and drawn on paper. They did not leak if they were made watertight. They did not collapse if they were properly supported. Houses were fair, they gave you what you deserved, which unfortunately was more than one could say about people. When I read that quote, that kind of just solidified my feelings about this book, and if you guys don't know by now, I love this book so much, okay? I gave this book a 4.5 stars. I totally think literally anybody should read this book. I could talk about this forever, okay? I love this book. Up next, guys, When Grumpy Met Sunshine. This book I picked up because I just wanted like a light, fluffy, fun book. I was going through a book slump this month, and I was just like, I need a simple rom-com because those never fail me. And let me tell you guys, I still don't know if this book failed me or not. I am so in the middle about this book. I could not even be like a centimeter on either side. This is just like a perfectly 3-star book for me. There is no other rating that would make sense in my head for this book. This book basically follows a popular athlete and then a ghostwriter who is basically writing a story for him. So they're kind of going through this whole like interview type of process where they like meet up, and then she kind of has to like dig deep into his life so that she can write a memoir for him. Does that make sense? I don't know. Do you guys know what a ghostwriter is? Because I feel like I just overcomplicated it for no apparent reason. Anyways, this book also has a fake dating trope in it, which I honestly did appreciate. I feel like there would have been no reason to not put that trope in there. I feel like before the fake dating trope like popped up, it was very, very like boring. I hate to be the one to say it, but that's exactly how I felt. I felt like these characters honestly didn't have any chemistry until like the fake dating started showing up, and I just don't know how to feel about that. I feel like that's the reason why I'm in the middle about this book. It feels like these characters would stay together for maybe a few months and then break up. That's the vibes they're giving me. And also, dare I say it, love confession at the end that I feel like every romance book has was just like, it fell flat for me. It was a very long love confession, like 3 pages long. And I was like, okay. Like, you're just saying stuff to say stuff at this point. Maybe I'm just bitter, okay? But I didn't really love that about this book. I will say the redeeming factors of this book were very redeeming. Like, our main characters, Mabel and Alfie, like, they were very likable. I just feel like they didn't have, like, the chemistry that I wanted. Their banter was good, but I was like, it's not eating. Like, it's not eating like I want it to be. Honestly, I didn't start taking pictures of like quotes from this book until the very end, and I think I only took 2 different pictures of quotes, and I'm normally like racks on racks on racks of screenshots of books. Like, you would think that I'm basically plagiarizing the book because of how many screenshots I take. Here we go, okay? This is like part of the like ginormous love confession at the end that I feel like spanned way too long. Like, you could have summarized that a little bit. Maybe, okay, they say a paragraph is 3 to 4 sentences long. Keep it that way. They say if you love something, let it go. Like, letting go is as easy as opening your hands so a thing that's hardly there can leave them, instead of what it really is, sawing off your own arm 1 millimeter at a time with a wooden spoon. Then just standing there and watching yourself bleed because you're too full of despair to do anything about it. Better you think that you let it happen, or at least that was my thinking. If I kept bleeding, I told myself I could get all that useless love out of me. The last quote I took a picture of from this book, it says, "It's not foolish to be who you truly are, to not let yourself be crushed down into nothing, because it hurts when you try, but it's also the very, very best." Anyways, this book still stays at a solid 3 stars. I feel like the characters were likable, the story was likable, everything was just likable, but it wasn't lovable to me. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but 3 stars. Solid 3 stars. Guys, these next books I have been waiting to talk about, like it's my last dying breath. I will literally be on my deathbed yapping about the rest of these books in this video, okay? So please stay seated. Dare I say it, I'm only 2 books in, and this might be my new favorite series of all time. First and foremost, The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. This book, tears. Sobbing, tears, anxiety, stress. Do I need to say more? This book's following our main character, Selena. She basically works for this Assassin's Guild, but she wants out of it. She's been working for the Assassin's Guild her whole life, and it kind of started as just a thing to like keep her alive because she didn't have a very nice childhood at all. So she kind of just like got more so roped into it, I feel. And now she's older and she realizes, I don't want to be in this Assassin's Guild anymore. But she's the most feared assassin in the Assassin's Guild. And she's like, no. No, guys, I actually choose peace. It's basically following 5 different missions that Selena goes on, and each one of these missions are like solidifying a new part of Selena. It's also a story about her like growing up. I feel like throughout each of these missions, it just kind of like solidified a new part of Selena's like personality and her actions, and like who she is as a person was solidified through each of these missions. I sobbed so many times with this book, okay? The way that Selena is treated is just so beyond me. Wow. This book like kind of solidified my trust issues a little bit because I was like, oh my gosh, everything's going so great. I'm glad Selena's finally trusting people. Oh. I don't think I want to tell you really anything more about this book because obviously I do not want to spoil a singular second of this book for you guys because there are so many like different plot twists that are happening in this book. I'm literally gonna sob if I start thinking about the ending, but I just think that there's something so special about the main character, Selena. I'm so obsessed with her so much. I relate to so many things. Let me see if I have some quotes from this book that don't really share too much because that would be a disservice to you guys if I literally gave you a singular ounce of what's in this book. That is from Thro class. So let me find... Sorry guys, my dog, my adorable, perfect specimen of a dog. If she snores at some points in this video, just pretend you didn't hear it, okay? Because how could you ever get mad at that cuteness? I'm so obsessed with her. Anyways, let me see these quotes, okay? Like if there's one thing that I need to actually do, is maybe find these quotes. It says, she knew the world still passed by, unaffected by the death of a young man, unaware that he'd ever existed and breathed and loved her. She hated the world for continuing on. If she never left this bed, this room, maybe she'd never have to continue on with it. Oh. Okay. On that same page, it says she didn't want to go out into a world where he didn't exist, so she watched the light shift and change and let the world pass by without her. Ugh, I can't think about it. It's literally like hurtful. It says, if you can learn to endure pain, you can survive anything. Some people learn to embrace it, to love it. Some endure it through drowning it in sorrow or by making themselves forget. Others turn into anger. But blank let her pain become hate and let it consume her until she became something else entirely. A person I don't think she ever wished to be. Selena absorbed his words but set them aside for consideration at a later time. Are you going to tell everyone about what she did? No, I would spare them that anger. Many people believe blank was their friend, and part of me, too, believes that at times she was. Selena looked to the floor, wondering what to do with the ache in her chest. Would turning it into rage, as he said, help her endure it? Literally the next pictures, I'll put them on the screen, are of me just sobbing crying at 2:49 a.m. over words on a page, characters that don't exist. And the fact that I put it in a YouTube video actually will haunt me until the day I die, but I feel like it was just like, I had to show you guys exactly how I was feeling. The last quote I want to share from this book says, never mind that for a while, she had felt like one of their own. Felt for the first time in a long, long while like she had a place where she belonged, where she might learn something more than deceit and how to end lives. But she'd been wrong. Somehow realizing that hurt far worse than the beating Arabin gave her. Happy, 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 fun, fun, fun. Yay. I love reading. If you guys didn't realize by now, I gave this book a 5 stars. Just genuinely seeing the like different reasons in this book behind like how Selena became who she is just like the most heartbreaking thing ever. It kind of solidified something in me too through Selena's story of like, hey, these bad things happened to you, but they just made you who you are. I feel like that genuinely sums up this book. It's just such a good book. I can't express that enough. Let's talk about Throne of Glass now, okay? Because also destroyed me, by the way. By the way, not only did I cry at the first book, I also cried at the second. Yeah, that's the mental state that I'm in, okay? Where we left off last book, without spoiling anything too crazy, Selena basically gets recruited to go through these different challenges and these different games. I would kind of describe it a little bit like the Hunger Games. I feel like that's the only way I can describe it that makes sense. It says she will be released from prison to serve as the king's champion. Basically, that means that she has to go through all of these different games, and if she wins those games, it's kind of structured like the Hunger Games. Imagine that in your head. If she wins the games, she gains freedom, and then she can just like actually live the life that she's been fighting so hard to have. I also think what should be said about this book too is that throughout the whole first book, you were kind of dealing with Selena losing her trust in people. I feel like in this book, you were dealing with her like building up that trust again with new people. This book I also gave a 5 stars. I feel like it's just one of those series that like, even if I don't completely love the plot, because I feel like I've seen books structured in like the Hunger Games-esque situation so many different times that it was just like, okay, I don't really care about these like games that Selena has to compete in. Wasn't too interested in like the actual games. I was more interested in like the dialogue between her and other characters and what was going on like in the palace and things like that instead of like the actual games that she was competing in. I didn't care about that too much. So much newfound love for all of the characters in this book and like the found family, and this book also destroyed me. So that's always fun. Guys, we have one final book to talk about, okay? And I know you guys are so sick and tired of hearing me talk about this book over and over and over and over and over again, okay? But a girl's gotta do what a girl's gotta do. I think this is the second reread this year of the 7-Year Slip. This is my favorite book of all time. Right away, book is 5 stars, okay? Love this book so incredibly much. I relate to our main character, Clementine. Like, literally, she's the epitome of me. Like, if I could literally bring Clementine to life, like, she'd be standing in front of me. She would look exactly like me. She would be doing like the same motion. Like, imagine there's 2 of me right now talking to you. Like, the other person would be Clementine. It doesn't matter how many times I read this book, the same quotes are going to destroy me every single time. So anyways, you're dealing with Selena's grief like very heavily in this book, but basically she's cleaning out her aunt's apartment. The funny thing about her aunt's apartment, and kind of like the crazy thing about it, is it travels 7 years in the past or 7 years in the future, and she meets this guy who basically was like staying in her aunt's apartment who her aunt knew like 7 years ago. It's alternate timelines, but it is so interesting, and it's so sweet, and it's so cute, and it's so funny, and it's so like sad at the same time. It's everything all in the same breath. I love this book so incredibly much. I just feel like this is one of those books that I will convince you to read with my last dying breath. Like I will be on my deathbed, they'll be like, hey, any final thoughts before you leave this earth? I'll be like, read the 7 Year Slip. You're not about to like know me at all without reading this book. Like I will convince every single person I know to read this book. And actually a quote from this book is the lock screen of my phone. That's how much I love this book. Guys, we've officially made it to the end of this video. These are all of the books that we talked about. If you want to read literally any of these books, I 1000% recommend. I will fully support that decision. Please let me know if you guys have read any of these books down in the comments below, because I always love to hear you guys' opinions. If there's one thing I have, it's an opinion, so I need to hear everyone else's also, okay? Follow all my socials, links are down in the description box down below, and watch another video of mine. Like, if you stuck around this long, the least you could do is subscribe and watch another video, okay?